Yo, we spent £1 million converting this old Citadel building into 14 luxury serviced apartments. We've now been operating the building for a year, and I'm going to teach you in this video how to run serviced accommodation, the processes involved, and what we've learned along the way. Stay tuned. So with this building, we're sat right in the heart of the town centre. You've got 100 metres that way, you're straight into where all the shops and the parades are, the shopping mall, things like that. We've got a load of shawarmas and little mini shops here if people want a quick bite to eat. And then we've also got, at the end of terrace just there, we'll layer over some B-roll, we've just bought another building that's going through planning at the moment to convert into 11 more serviced apartments to complement our existing serviced apartments on the same street. At the end of that road, all the way down there's a brand new museum, the Railway Museum, that they spent about 60 million quid on renovating, and that's meant to be a huge tourist attraction, bringing in, I think it's hundreds of thousands or 1 million people a year. I can't remember the numbers. But either way, this street is going through huge regeneration, which is massively beneficial to our serviced apartments. The building itself was an old Citadel building, cost a lot of money to refurbish it, very difficult to work with. We made a lot of mistakes and costly mistakes on the renovation side of things, mostly because we did the renovation during the huge inflation crisis and the rising interest rates, which meant we extended our bridge. It meant that the cost of materials, some of which were going up 300% during that time. So a lot of mistakes learned in the actual development of the building, but running it as serviced apartments has been also just as learning. Yeah, fuck it. So there's all kinds of things we've done to optimize this building, and I want to show you them in this video to try and help you if you plan to do serviced apartments, or if you want to use us as a serviced accommodation provider. So we've recently put up this signage here as well, because it just clearly shows anyone walking past, there's a lot of foot traffic here, you've seen people walking past in this video, they can look in and go, oh, okay, this is a serviced accommodation building. That's nice, I'm a local, and my friends or family come to stay every now and then during the year, which happens a lot in Darlington. We have people stay in our property who frequent Darlington regularly to see family, and they use our building. One guy, he booked out the whole building a couple of weeks ago for all of his family and friends because they're doing a wedding, and he stayed here 6 or 7 times, and he usually always books out 2 or 3 apartments, so it's ideal. So we want to remind people always where we are. Here's a little plaque we've got as well that shows the details for the bookings and things like that. Over here, we've got more signage which shows really clearly the Beaumont's serviced apartments with a big fucking arrow pointing towards the building. We've got these nice up and down lights, so at night the building's lit. And then we've got our name, the Beaumont's, which we've renamed the building to. It's actually called the Beaumont's, not out of ego, although fuck it, call it ego, don't really care. It's more because of all of the traffic that goes past. And there's traffic lights just here as well, so you always see people stopping and queuing up, and then they're gonna see the Beaumont's, and that helps our name in the town with our Beaumont Construction, Beaumont Service Accommodation, Beaumont Lettings, Beaumont Development Services. We want to get the name around the town as much as possible. That local branding is very powerful. So here we are at one of the side entrances, and we've got these keypads. So these keypads are here and on the back entrance and throughout every apartment. So to get into an apartment or to get into the building, there's a key code system. We change these codes all the time just so that when guests come and stay, they don't also have access to the building if they then wanted to come back the next day and get in. So these codes continuously change, and we have a system that manages that. And we're in. So this is all of our fire panel system and everything else for fire safety and safety blankets, all that kind of stuff. We also had to put this up as well to show escape routes to tenants. As part of building control and FRA compliance. Obviously we've got all of the rest of the fire stuff that you usually have in this kind of building. So let me show you these codes. So this links to a system that I'll show you in our comms room. And we can change these remotely from a dashboard on one of our software channels. And it means that when guests are staying, they get emailed a direct instruction for how to get to their apartment, what apartment they're staying in, and what their code is. And 24 hours before their stay and on the day of their stay, they're also getting that code reminded to them. However, that doesn't stop people from calling us going, how do I get in the building? What's the code? Sometimes people just won't bother looking, so that's a bit annoying. We get quite a lot of calls like that, people asking sort of irrational things. If they just checked their text messages or checked their email, they'd have all the information they needed. But at least it's as easy as going, check your email, or yeah, it's no problem, I'll ping it to you now. That makes life a hell of a lot easier because it means no one needs to come and meet and greet any of our guests. They can just sign themselves in, super easy, sign themselves out, and then the codes change for the next round of guests that then come to stay at the apartments. And we also have a 1-minute video, 60 seconds, that also gets sent to all of the guests, which shows them the building, shows them the parking. It's me just talking to them, showing them how the building works, how they get in their apartment and things like that. Just trying to remove as much of the administrative tasks as possible, as much of the communication as possible, so that they have everything they need. Most guests use common sense, some people won't, and they just won't bother looking at anything. And that can be quite quite annoying for our lettings girls because they won't call during normal hours. People usually arriving late at night, just after work hours. So it means people are getting calls at like 6, 7, 8, sometimes 10, 11 o'clock going, how do I get in my apartment? And you have to respond. You can't just leave people stood outside. And sometimes they, might be an elderly person who's just got no idea how to check their email or something. So we have to walk them through the process, sometimes come and meet them. So even though you can have a keyless system, doesn't mean it's perfect. It means that there still is some interaction that has to be done there. And we've done as much as we can to improve that process over time. Maybe at some point, we won't have anyone that needs to communicate with us, but I very much doubt it. Even having a keyed system still means there's a manual override to instruct people on where to go. But it does a lot of the heavy lifting for you, and also no keys to manage or lose. And we have these QR codes plastered around the building. They're in every communal area and they're in every apartment, nice and big and bold. Next time, book direct, QR code, save 10%. And this is a big game changer. This really helped. And we actually have the QR code is hosted on a website called Flowcode, and it's free. So don't go accepting QR codes where they charge you monthly subscriptions for it. You don't need to do that. Flowcode is free. And using this, we can see on there how many times it's scanned. And within the first month or two, it was scanned 100 times. So we know people were using it just from that back-end usage. And then people were booking direct coming through our website rather than through the Avivo channels, through the OTAs, booking.coms, your Airbnb, platforms like that. But this saves us, because what the OTAs will charge you, booking.com, Airbnb, they'll charge you comms on all bookings, about 15%. Obviously, they've got to make money, but that 15% is a huge amount off your gross revenue. So when they book direct, they save 10% of their gross revenue, but we net 5%. So they save 10%, we net 5%. So we make more money on direct bookings. So you want to make sure you've got QR codes that are going to your direct booking page. Create a nice website for it. We had our direct website given to us as a default from Avivo. It spits out a direct website page. Wasn't very great. So we spent about 1,500 quid to get a new website made so that it looks spanking, and it's stuck on our Google page so that anyone who's trying to look for us, it looks like a nice spanking website, really nice building. And also off the back of that, when we add more properties to our service accommodation arm, we can add those into that embedded website that then links into the Avivo booking channel. So that's what we've done there. QR codes, super important. They will increase your bottom line, and they will increase repeat bookings, because people then will come to you directly because they know they're saving 10% on really good accommodation somewhere next. Now these are just a really clear instruction manual on how to get to your apartments. So from this main entrance here and the rear entrance, there's just clear signage. Lower ground floor, apartments 1 to 4. Ground floor, apartments 5 to 9. First floor, apartments 10 to 15. And we've never had anyone get lost in this building. And trust me, if you didn't know the building, it's a bit of a rabbit warren. So I'm guessing these have just worked beautifully because we've never had anyone complain about it. They can always find their apartment nice and easy. So put up some clear signage if you've got a building that's a little bit nuanced, and people will find their apartment. They're on every floor as well. So not just the main entrances, every floor also shows exactly where and what apartments are down the next corridor. So this is our first inventory cupboard that we first used. So we're on the first floor right here, and before, these shelves were all stacked with all the stock that we need for this building. Extra toilet roll, extra soaps, all our hamper stuff like our biscuits, coffee, and those kind of items. They were all stacked here, but we've moved them to the cleaning store now, and I'll explain that when we're down there. But this has got some of the remaining keys left over, a couple little useful bits and bobs, spare bins, a couple chairs, nothing really that exciting in here, but we did start off using this. And the reason we moved it downstairs is because our cleaners were having to go to 2 different places all the time to pick up the inventory here and then to do the cleaning downstairs. Now we also have this here. So behind there is a really long storage cupboard, and in there we've got spare pillows, duvets, all kinds of stuff like that, because what happens if you get a drunk party here and they all puke all over the beds, and you might be able to change the sheets, but you can't change the duvets if they're sodden through. So we make sure that we've got a load of spare stuff here. People can also nick pillows and stuff like that. So we make sure we've got all the spare gear here so that we never have an issue with having to change those key items. We were constantly revolving stock. So I'll show you in the cleaning cupboard what happens next. This is our cleaning store. So we had this big area, big void in the back of the property where there's no windows, there's no way of getting habitable space in here. So we've converted it into our cleaning room, which is not the best way to do things. I wish from the start we knew this was going to be the case. Halfway through this development, we then pivoted from doing standard AST apartments to serviced accommodation. So there was a bit of butchering we had to do with the infrastructure in the building, and we just didn't think that much about the cleaning. Naivety. We didn't think that the cleaning would be as big of an issue as it was. But cleaning, turning around bed linen, towels and things like that is a massive task. We have cleaners full-time, 2 different cleaners operate this building, and they're pretty much here all the time. Not only just cleaning the apartments and cleaning the communals and bits around the front of the property, but also all these different beddings are going through different cycles within our washing machines. So we've got 2 washing machines, 2 dryers. Now, in hindsight, we should have got industrial size ones, which at some point we will do. We'll get into this building and we will improve the quality of not only just the cosmetic quality, but also the infrastructure we have in here to operate this building. These are just your standard domestic washers and dryers. Although they're kitted out, you know, they'll take a lot of abuse, but you can get industrial sized ones, and at some point that is what we'll do in here. For now, it works for what we need, and there's all of this linen to go through. But you don't just have to wash it, because it's all crinkled and creased and it doesn't look great. So you then have to steam it out and iron it to make it look really nice, and then put it back on the beds. Now you times that by, some of these apartments got 5 beds in them, 5 double beds, which is more than 10 pillowcases. I think it's about 20 pillowcases, because some beds we put 4 pillows on. You got that many pillowcases, then you got the bed sheets, the duvets, and the towels. There's a lot of turning around of inventory, so you really need a big space like this to be able to do it, to give our cleaners the equipment they need. Now, the problem we've had recently is the humidity in this room. We have a tiny extractor, but we need something much bigger because the moisture that builds up. But we're going to get a dehumidifier in here to help suck some of that moisture out of the room. Now, behind here is a void that runs all the way to the external, because we had to build this retaining wall during the construction to hold back this wall here. There's just earth behind that wall, and that retaining wall then left a void above, which is kind of a nice coincidence. And what we want to do is stick a big extractor in there that runs all the way out to the external wall, but it'll cost us a couple grand, so we just haven't got around to doing it yet. Dehumidifier, a few £100, so that's a temporary solution. But another thing we can do to improve this property long term. But if you're going to do SA, do not underestimate the inventory. The turning around of linen. The cleaning's easy. Cleaning's like, hour's work, depending on the size of the apartment and the condition it was left in by the previous guest. But turning around all the linen, you really need a proper procedure and a process to get that done efficiently. Now the inventory: teas, milks, soaps, shampoos, sugars, sweeteners, other things, other stuff, biscuits, lots of biscuits. And then we've got all the cleaning products and everything else that they'll need. And then there is toilet paper and other things somewhere else. So the cleaners in here really operate this building with my mother, Lynn, and they do most of the work of figuring out more efficient processes. They're constantly trying to go, how can we make this easier? How can we make this better? How can we improve the quality to the guests? There's all things we're trying to update all the time, because it is a service-based business. This is not a passive investment by any means. And it can be if you subby everything out and you employ an operator like us. We are an operator of this building, and we plan to extend that service to other landlords and clients, but it doesn't mean it's easy. It is hard work for the operators. There's a lot to think of, a lot to do, a lot of moving parts continuously. It's basically a hotel. We are running a hotel here. We just don't have manned staff on the ground. So yeah, you need a lot of inventory. You need your cleaning facilities. You need to turn around stock, and you need on-site staff like cleaners, who are your lifeblood to keep the building tip top. And here's our comms room, which needs a little bit of work. Again, it's one of those things where we need to put more money into this building to just improve some of the infrastructure. It's functional, but this is all of our comms that come in from the CCTV system and our Paxton key code system. That all feeds in to this unit here, that feeds into that laptop, which feeds into a dashboard that we can access remotely. And that there is a CCTV camera. We cover every single angle of this building externally and also internally. So we know if anyone ever came in this building, we're capturing them from at least 4 different angles. And we have had a couple instances, actually not in the building, but outside the building on the road, where a car got vandalized and we just so happened to have it on our CCTV. You need to have the CCTV always functional, it's always recording. It's got like 7 days worth of backup or something. And then the Paxton system here, and that is our key code system. Everything feeds back to this brain that's then connected to the internet. So that's our comms room. And for a building this size, you really need one of these so that you can manage things efficiently, like leaving the screen on the floor. And now we're in the bin store. You'll notice we have a continuous extractor on in here whenever someone comes in, so that it's taking that air out of the building, so otherwise this room gets quite smelly. So why we're in the bin store is to show you the commercial bins we have. So when we first set up this building, it was going to be a 14 standard apartments, and that means that the council would want like 30 odd bins in here for the recycling, for the general waste. That would be okay if they were tenants here for long tenures, because they're going to care more and they're going to be held to account if they don't properly distribute their waste in the right way. With a service accommodation building, there's no way we can expect transient tenants to be able to do that, let alone police that. If someone's here just for a night, they're just not going to split their cardboard or their tins and things like that. So I had to go through a bit of a negotiation with the council, who were very amenable, to be fair. They understood the transit nature of this building, and we made sure to get all of the bins changed to commercial bins. Now, it wasn't straightforward. They were pushing, even though it was service accommodation, they were still trying to push for the individual bins, but that would become a fucking nightmare. And it sounds trivial, but if you've got bins overflowing and it becomes a fucking rat-infested shithole in here, that's going to massively let down the building and anyone who is staying here for longer durations. So we had to push them to make sure we get these commercial bins in. And once we spoke to them and they understood what we were doing and it made more sense, and I said, there's no way for us to police it. It's going to be a shit show. We need the commercial size bins for all waste, general waste, and we'll keep cardboard to one side. And they agreed, and that made life a lot easier. So make sure commercial bins, if you're doing service accommodation on this sort of scale. If you're just doing a house, then you probably, or an apartment, you've probably not got an issue. But if you're doing a large building, you need the right infrastructure. Now this is apartment 14, which is the crown jewel of the building. You get a better idea of the spec and everything else in here. So here is a finished room that the cleaners have prepared, and they do their little gun turret towel looking thing and tucking in the bed sheets in this way. Looks way nicer than what we did when we first let the building. Those first few nights, me and mum just got everything ready because we didn't have designated cleaners yet, and one of them was ill, and we had a bad cleaner before, and then we got better cleaners. Bit of a nightmare, but we used to just fold the sheets over. But actually, you get proper cleaners to do it, and it just looks a lot neater, a lot nicer. And then we're maximizing space. This is a huge room. Just the profile of the building is quite deep, so a lot of the rooms are very large. And we managed to get 3 double beds in here. This apartment's always fully booked. We've got guests coming in later today. And the problem is, with service accommodation, you get all this shit, all the little marks and nicks and knocks, and there's really not much you can do about it. If you've got long-term ASTs and people in here, then you can take it off their deposit, and they're gonna deal with it for many months, so you don't really think about it. But these marks get to a certain point where you go, right, now we need to paint it, and we get our guys back in to come and lick it up and paint it. So this is now at a point where we need to touch back in this paint. And then annually, we may then come and just paint the whole wall so that it's got a nice, because if you just touch in one little bit, it's gonna show those little paint marks, but it does for now. But really, you want to paint the whole wall back in annually to get it looking nice. The white you can touch in a bit easier, but the wear and tear on SA over the first year of doing it it's not really high actually. It's not that bad. You just get the odd bad tenant in here. The painting's the issue, and a few towels and a few other bits might go missing, but it's not actually that bad. Considering the scale of this building, we've had over 1,000 guests have come through this building in just the first year. It's probably more like 1,500 now, and there's always going to be wears and tears and bits and bobs. Obviously, your revenue's a lot higher, so it's not like you can't afford it. It's just something else logistically and operationally that you need to think about. And then little wheels on chairs like this that go missing and break, and some of the handles and doors go, because people staying in here, when they're transient, you get the odd good person, you get the odd bad person. And I'll show you what happened to one of our apartments with some B-roll when someone came in and deliberately they tried to destroy the apartment. We actually found through the grapevine, because some of our staff who work with us are local and they saw stuff on Facebook that was circulating of someone on their Snapchat singing and dancing away in the fucking apartment, smoking up straight in the middle of the apartment, no windows open or anything, and they were just kicking the shit out of the place, which is obviously annoying. And we've only had that twice. We've only had 2 bad ones, and one of them, even though it was quite bad aesthetically, actually once we fixed it up, it only cost us a couple $100. The other one cost us about $1,000, which is quite annoying. So when you're doing apartments at scale, you will just have the odd knobhead that comes and stays. You leave them bad reviews, you make sure they never come back to the building, try and blacklist their name, but that is just a part and the parcel of running service accommodation at scale. So then come through here, and we built a brand new, this whole building, remember, back to brick refurb, cost us over £1 million to configure this whole new building. It was an old Citadel building, it was old and it was fucking huge, it was like a cavern in here. There's loads of stud walls everywhere. We ripped the whole thing back, and we had to do a lot of structural remediation, raised about 200 square meters of this floor, and then we stuck this whole new mezzanine floor on top, which gave us 2 bathrooms for this one, because we've got 3 beds in there, 2 beds up there. We usually have 8 to 10 guests stay in this apartment at any given time, so 2 bathrooms is definitely what was required, and we've never had any complaints about the usage of the bathrooms, so 2 seems to be fine. They're really nice spec, nicely finished. We always make sure we're checking them and tweaking them and making sure they're clean and regrouting if we need to. And then they've got all the bits and bobs that they'll need. You can see how the cleaners leave it for the next guests. They've got their little shampoos and soaps here, which are always full. Always make sure they've got ample toilet roll, make sure they've got bin lining in the bin, bleach your toilets, all that kind of stuff. And then there's also a bedroom above here as well, which we had to build. It's up those stairs. That's a great room. However, in the summer, it gets really hot up there because we don't have aircon. It's the UK, we don't do aircon. So we've put in an air coolant system that they can then use, fill up with ice. And again, there's a video tutorial on how to use that. Types of complaints we had. One was that room gets really hot. So we put that in there, but their comments are always, we love your building, it's really nice, it's just a bit hot in that apartment. So we put the aircon system in there. And then the other comment was on these beds. So we used to have really cheap mattresses on them from an old supplier that we used. I was testing them out, so you'll notice these beds aren't particularly nice. All of the other apartments have really nice beds, like I think it's Divian headboards or whatever they're fucking called. And they look really nice. The big tall grey headboards, really solid bases. But I experimented and went with another supplier to get cheaper beds. Shouldn't have done it, because then I got really cheap shit mattresses, and we had those for a few months, and those are some other complaints we had. So we changed those for better mattresses. We've never had those complaints again. And then you got the kitchen. It's a really nice kitchen area. Again, see all these little marks and bits and bobs. You just can't avoid them. There's people in here partying, drinking. This is always a bit of a bachelor pad. Apartment 14, there's always parties going on in here, which we don't have a problem with as long as they're sensible and they don't go late into the night. So there is a 10 o'clock curfew. They're not meant to make too much noise beyond that, and that is generally adhered to, which is great. But you know, it's a really nice, open, airy space. They've got all the seating they'll need, a nice smart TV. Every apartment's got their own Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is really important. You'll get lots of complaints if you don't have good Wi-Fi. TV with a Netflix subscription, all that sort of shit. And then our hampers. So when they come, we've always made sure they've got fully stocked hampers with enough to make teas, coffees with the milks and sugars and a few biscuits there and stuff like that. Actually, there should be more biscuits in that one. But the cleaners have found out over time what portion they need to have in each, and you'll notice that there's quite a lot in here. The reason there's quite a lot is because this apartment generally has a lot of people staying in it, and we've had a few comments on, oh, there wasn't quite enough milk, and I had to go to the shop and buy some milk. And so we're trying to cover a lot of bases. You can't do everything for people, but we're trying to cover as much as we can. And then enough seating for some dining, and then it's all fully kitted out kitchen. So the best thing you can do with service accommodation is give people enough to entice them to stay longer. So if they know they've got the full cooking facilities here and they could potentially live here for a few months, well, that's how you get people to come and stay for a few months. And those are the most profitable bookings you can get. You want people staying as long as humanly possible. That is the goal with service accommodation. You don't want people staying nightly, really, unless you're in prime area and you can charge big bucks for it. But hotels are fine for nightly, but for service accommodation, really, you want people staying for weeks or months on end. So giving them the full facility means they're likely to do it because it's comfortable and it's got everything they'll need. And we've had some really long bookings here. We've had multiple people stay for different months and different periods of the year, working with businesses and contractors and people like that who do repeat bookings. The QR codes, the service, the website upgrades, all those things have helped to nurture that kind of clientele so they come back to us for more and more bookings. And that's what we're aiming to do, is build up that list of businesses and repeat booking people so that we can build rapport with them, so that they help with our referrals, they refer more people to the building, and those businesses we continue to work with as often as we can. So really important if you want to get the longer stays and get more profitability out of the building. And now I'm going to show you the software systems we have to use to run this building. Let's go. So here we are at the laptop, and this is our serviced accommodation website, which we had made off the back of a Vivo, which gives you a default website. However, this one we had custom made and then stuck into the back end of a Vivo so that it just looks a lot more presentable. So these are some of the units and some of the marketing photos and the rates, and people can book directly through this website, avoiding the commissions on the OTAs, but only if they come through us direct. You're not allowed to advertise direct bookings through the OTAs. You get banned real quick. So it's all the QR code bookings and other marketing and repeat guests and stuff who come through our direct bookings. Now I'm going to show you a Vivo. Here is our booking engine. So this is a Vivo channel manager, and you can see our last week we were pretty much fully booked for the whole week, and then we're looking ahead now this coming week, and you can see sometimes we'll have the week ahead booked up and sometimes it's sort of dotted like this. And today we're shooting at 5 p.m. and you notice we've got 3-4 units not fully let, but sometimes
to get people come in last minute, and usually the next 2 days will be booked out from the previous 2 days. So this calendar will probably get 50% more booked by the end of the week, but it's also just looks like it might be a bit of a slower week. But you can see these longer term bookings here, exactly what you're looking for to make sure you're filling up the duration of your calendar. Higher occupancy levels are much more important than just many a transient stays. But this is Avivo. Avivo then speaks to all of the OTAs like your Booking.com, your Airbnb, and it's how you manage all of your bookings from one calendar rather than having to sync calendars awkwardly. And then you can see there's things like guest conversations where we can speak to the guests before their arrival, but you can speak to them through here, and then that can come through to them on text as well. And then there's a really good help center as well with Avivo, so any issues they're quick to respond, etc, etc. Anyway, that is the management system that we use in the back end, and obviously we have to speak to the OTAs as well. And on Booking.com, we are the highest rated service accommodation in our town with over 170 reviews. And yeah, that is Avivo. Really good channel manager. It's absolutely essential to sync all those calendars and bookings in one direct place, and also the cleaners can use that to see as and when guests are going to leave, so they can go in and do the turnaround cleans, change the linen and stuff like that. The OTAs are super important. We are the highest rated service accommodation apartment in Darlington, and the same with Airbnb as well. We're Superhost on that, and then we've got an accreditation I can't remember the name of on Booking.com, which basically makes us a Superhost as well. We've had over 170 reviews with a 9.3 star out of 10 average review rating, which is great. And it means that when people come to stay, they know they're staying in a safe and nice place, well reputable, and a good service level. So you need the ratings, you need to have a central system, and you need a team that can manage this stuff and do the cleans and the turnarounds. But anyway, that's a brief overview of the systems we use in the back end.
Now we're at the back of the building. So this is where there's parking on the street here, and then there's Garden Street car park just up there, which has got like 30, 40 spaces in it. So we make sure our guests know before they stay that these are the available parking spaces. But anyway, that's mostly this video. Not quite finished yet, because we've got plans to scale this part of our business, this servicing part, the service departments. We want to build out a hotelier arm to what we're doing, because why the fuck not? We've already got this building. We've got another building over there that we're going to fold into it. We've got another one up in another town where we can do a similar thing with 17 apartments. And we love the service-based stuff. It's just, I know some people don't. Some people want really hands-off investment. Well, that's fine. They can give their stock to us and we'll manage it. Because we love the human side of things, where you're providing this quality for people, where in the Christmas month, we like decorate it and put Christmas trees up and other bits and bobs like that. And we get all the reviews from online, and Mum loves running this sort of building as well. Hospitality is fun. So it's nice to sort of dip our toe into hospitality. And then one day, you never know, maybe we'll own some hotels in the Med somewhere or in London. I'd love to do that. I'd love to have a hotel chain. I think that'd be really cool. And this service department is giving us an insight into how to really operate these types of buildings. Anyway, Bowman & Partners going to be building out a hotelier portfolio in due course. It's going to be fun. This building has been operating at 86% occupancy, which is brilliant because we ran all of our numbers at about 65%. So 86% occupancy, well over 1,000 people come and stay here. It's a great building to have. And for anyone out there trying to sell you training courses on Rent to SA, do not fucking do it. You will not really make good money. You're just not worth doing. Don't do Rent to SA. Purpose-built service accommodation is how you want to do it. You do it in line with building control standards. You get all the right planning permission and all the permissions around that you need for the building. You get all the right infrastructure in the building, and then you either bring in an operator or you manage it yourself and do what we've done is set up all the systems. And that's how you make money in service accommodation. Rent to SA is a fool's errand. Those are the people out there trying to sell you the concept on rent to service accommodation, and it just isn't fucking feasible. Like, don't do it. Like, there are people who can make loads of money doing it at a certain scale with the right connections with the right developers, but I call them operators. I wouldn't say that's Rent to SA, where you're then taking out long leases and other things like that, which can work, because Holiday Inn, Travel Lodge, that is what they do, but that's different. That's not what's being sold to people. What's being sold to people is go take this house, stick it on Avivo, pay rent to the landlord, and then you'll arbitrage in between. You'll make loads of money. But if you're then building yourself a job. You're then having to operate that building, which you may as well just go and work a normal job because you'll probably make the same amount of money. Now, if you do want to then use that as a stepping stone to scale that and then become like a Travel Lodge or a Holiday Inn where you can build out those big leases and that rapport with those developers that own that kind of land, then sure, maybe you could. But it really isn't that feasible. I know loads of people who've done Rent to SA, they've tried to scale it, they've struggled, and they've ended up killing the business. You might get lucky on the odd rent to SA, but really to scale that, very difficult, let alone the big reason why I think it's fucking stupid is because not only are you basically replacing your day job for just a day job running SA, which isn't that scalable because eventually you need to employ staff and your margins get eroded and therefore you need a huge amount of SA, and then you've got all these operational complexities, and then it's all built on rent-to-rent agreements that then have long stop dates where the landlord then may not want to renew. Like, all these problems happen over time of running rent-to-service accommodation, let alone the fact that there's regulatory changes that will come in and impact this sector. At the moment it's quite an unregulated market, but they will come in, and then you need to start putting fire provisions in and acoustic provisions in and everything else that you need to put into this kind of building that's purpose built with a C1 use class. Much better to get a large building like this, do the development, take on the bigger risk, which is where money is. You take on big risk, you make big money. That's how life works. Rent to SAs are the people making the money, are the people selling you courses on how to do rent to SAs, not the people operating them. I know lots of people who've operated them. Some people have actually done quite well. There's a guy in Birmingham who does really well because he gets long leases with big purpose-built apartments, and that's different. That's a different kind of model. Get your hands on property development, learn how to become a landlord and own the asset. That's how you really control the asset. Don't listen to the hyperbole of, you control the asset with management. If you're paying rent to the landlord, then you're paying a big margin to the landlord, and then you've got this small margin to work with up here that, yes, if you manage it yourself, you might make some good money, but how can you scale that? You could only have so much time in the day. So anyway, I thought I'd just do a quick rant on that because I see too many people selling courses on rent to SAs. It just isn't that feasible. The odd person might be able to make it work, but this is the kind of shit you really want to do if you want to run serviced accommodation. Anyway, that's the end of this video. I hope it's been useful. Hope it's given you some useful insights on how to do serviced accommodation. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Make sure you subscribe.